Welcome back everyone to Bang for Your Buck TCG. Now we're going to be taking a different approach today. I'm going to be making this video about Pokemon TCG and it's really describing to you guys about currently what I'm doing in this market today for Pokemon. And just, keep in mind that this is definitely going to be different for everyone. I don't recommend everyone to do the exact same thing as me because, it's going to really be dependent on it's going to be very dependent on the person, right? But I kind of want to make this type of video just to kind of see things, just to kind of see how things are going and just really explain some of my thought process and what I'm seeing, any opportunities that I see, and just kind of go from there. I'm going to be documenting this on on an Excel sheet. I'll kind of, let you guys see it and then maybe you guys could follow along if you guys are interested and just kind of things like that, right? So yeah, I guess let's get started. For Pokemon, I really like to look at it in two different ways, right? I like to look at it on the sealed side and the slab side. For Pokemon, I explain it in my couple of videos. I'm about 50% in sealed and 50% in slabs. So let's kind of look at the sealed side for today right now, right? So for sealed Pokemon right now, what am I currently doing? And if you watch my videos before, I explained how the G block is rotating out right now. It's going to be rotating out in about 8 months. So generally this is where I like to start to look for opportunities. And right now, kind of make this video a little easy because Prismatic is the one that's rotating out in 8 months and it's a S tier set. And not only that, it's actually a very good entry point right now. So all in all, what I'm saying is Prismatic Evolution is the one set that I'm heavily invested in right now. And I'm going to keep buying for the next 5 to 6 months or so. When we're looking at Prismatic, what am I really looking to buy is really bundles. Bundles SPC because they're a pretty good entry point right now. I wouldn't really buy too much of this just because I'm not too familiar with the product skill. I think I limit myself to about 15% max allocation of this one. I bought a bunch of ETBs. I don't see it here, but regular ETBs. I bought a bunch of that. So I'm really looking at those three skills. It's the bundles, SPC, and the regular ETBs. And I'm also looking into buying some loose pack because I feel like for the wholesaling side, I like to cater to the general audience. Everyone loves to rip packs. So I'm trying to buy some loose packs, but with loose pack is really, it could be kind of dangerous because you have to trust your source. People, it could be weight, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So for this, what I like to do is look for a collection, and I kind of check the price per pack. So let's kind of take a look. Priceperpack.net is actually a very useful site that I use sometimes. So I go to Scarlet Violet, look for Prismatic. So saying mini tins is kind of what I need to look for right now. So I generally like to just buy collection boxes and then just break it down myself just to get the loose packs in general. And then I grade the promos for the most part. So I'll keep an eye on this and kind of look for opportunities. I do want to stack up like 2, 3, 4,000 loose pack just so that I could eventually sell it in my store down the line. So for sealed, I know, there's been a lot of talk about Distant Rival, and something that you guys have to consider is that when I'm saying that I'm heavily invested in Prismatic, it's really because I'm looking at it as a return on investment, right? The Prismatic play is definitely a little bit more riskier, but I feel like you're also going to get the most returns. When people talk about they want to buy some Destined Rivals now, their downside risk is capped a little bit if they could get at a good entry point for the regular ETBs, right? Regular ETBs, let's say they could get in at 80, 90, or $100. Then your downside risk is not that much. So it's generally safer, but then I feel like your upside is capped a little bit. Right now, you still have like 2 years of these print runs on the I block, I believe. Because this is H block, I block. Yeah, I block. So 2 more years of print runs for the I block. You know, what I will like to do is I will probably just go heavy on prismatic, wait 1-2 year for it to appreciate, slowly sell out, and then slowly rotate some of the profits back into the I block that's going to be out the following year. So that's kind of my thought process. You know, if you're comparing like buying prismatic now versus Destined Rivals ETB at $90, $100, I will kind of, you know, ask myself, okay, I might see Destined Rivals ETB going up to 120, 130, 140 maybe, but the risk is that what if there's going to be another big wave of reprints, right? And then it's going to drop back down to $100 or something, you know. Versus Prismatic, I know that is going out of rotation in about 8 months. So what I've noticed is that, you know, you really want to aim for 1.5 years to 1 year mark to really start buying stuff in the block that's going to be rotating out, you know. And they tend to have a lot more gains on, you know, right after they rotate out for the next 2 years. I feel, you know, a lot of gains usually happens around that time. So, you know, that's kind of how I look at it. So the general framework when it comes to CO Pokemon, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to get in around the 1 to 1.5 year mark before they rotate out, and then slowly start selling out 1 to 2 years after they rotate out, if that makes sense. So yeah, CO side, that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. That's the opportunity that I'm seeing today. You know, if I see any opportunities 3 months, 2 months down the road, I'll make another video to explain it. But for now, made it kind of simple for the CO part. So I made a little Excel sheet. Yep. So for the CO, you could see that I kind of put bundles, ETBs, SPC. These are the current price, you know. Accumulation range, yeah, so these are the price point that I want to buy it at, is kind of, you know, 65 to 80 bucks for prismatic bundles if I could, 120 to 150 for prismatic ETBs, and the list kind of goes on. These last two parts, you know, prismatic loose pack and surging sparks loose pack, I mainly put these because these are something that I do want to have in my store for the future. You know, when I'm looking at this, I feel like those two sets is gonna be the most in demand. So I'm kind of generally going for the loose packs on some of this, just to accumulate in hopes that, you know, 1 year, 2 year down the road, I could, you know, slowly sell out. So yeah, sealed is kind of straightforward. That's kind of what I'm doing. And the next thing that I will talk to you about is the slab market for Pokemon. So the slab market is something that's still kind of new to me. You know, just keep in mind about that. You know, what I'm doing with slabs, I'm not really fully convicted that it's going to work, but I'm just kind of looking at some trends that I see and I'm trying it out. You know, I'm going to see how it works. Versus a seal, you know, I'm pretty confident that the play right now is prismatic. I'm like almost 100% confident that I'll be willing to, you know, keep pouring money in there. For the slab is a little bit more risky, so just take everything that I'm saying with the slab with a grain of salt. Just look at the data. You know, you might disagree with me, but I'm gonna play it this way and kind of see how it goes. With slabs, you could go a lot of different ways. You could go the vintage route. You could buy a lot of stuff that's under 5,000 right now for some of the vintage stuff that could have a lot of return, you know, but with Pokemon, there's just so many different promo cards and sets that you could look into that I didn't really have time to really look through everything. So for today in general, I'm just going to talk to you about the Scarlet and Violet era. And then we're going to just start with the bottom Scarlet base. Let's kind of take a look here. I'll kind of talk to you about my thought process on what I look for in general. And then kind of hopefully you could kind of follow along. Scarlet Violet base, I really don't see much here when I really look at this. These cards are interesting because these actually tell a story, if you didn't know that. I kind of read this online somewhere. So you can see that this is in the beginning, you know, and then the evolved form is when they got older, and then now she's an adult and the two adults are more older, right? So it kind of tells you a little story on it. It's kind of interesting for me. So when I'm looking at this, when I'm looking at graded plays, just know that for Pokemon, I don't grade myself. So with everything, I usually tend to just kind of buy it slab already, right? So with this, trying to get the entry point is very important. And then usually what I like to look at for here is I just kind of adjust the timeline. So you can see right off the bat, I look at the gym rate roughly, 700 versus this very low gym rate. When I just glance at this really quick, kind of look at the price point, you can kind of see, like it kind of trends up. And this one, I believe, was G block that just rotated out. So you can see that a lot of the gains was 8 months ago, right? Getting in was like, I would say 12 to 8 months ago. You get in around this time. A big run up, it usually happens, when they rotate out. That's why right now I'm investing heavily in the H block that's rotating out. So looking at this, it's definitely expensive right now. I feel it's not a good entry point for this card. Demand, I guess, could be there because it's telling a story, but this is kind of the stuff that I'm looking at. You kind of look at this, same thing, right? Low gym rate. Looking at the chart, $600. So you can see too, like big run up. Usually, a couple months happens a couple months before it rotates out. So with Gardevoir, there's definitely a lot more supply on this, and then higher gym rate. So you can see that that's part why it's around 250. But yeah, I'm just kind of looking at this just to see if there's any opportunities. I don't really see anything here. Riolu, maybe? Yeah, but it definitely ran up a lot already. So looking at this, low gym rate is good low gym rate is very good when it comes to trying to buy cards that's graded, right? That's one of a important factor that I look at. But you can see it ran up a lot already, $600 right now. Not a good entry point, in terms of ROI. I'll probably just avoid this. So all in all, Scarlet and Violet base, I'll probably completely ignore. I'll kind of go to Paldea Evolve. With this, I'll kind of just tell you what I know for sure I'm kind of looking into, which is Raichu and Tyranitar. Yeah, same thing. You can see like stagnant accumulation, maybe went up 20-30%, but it's usually just a big run up right before they rotate out. That's why I really emphasize on understanding their print windows, understanding their supply. Why is really good to just try to invest heavily now into the block that's rotating out, which is H block. Raichu I like just because, I like this, Pokemon in general. It's sleeping. It's just entry is kind of high. It's generally more safer right now for this. Gym rate isn't great. Entry is just high though. So if I could find a good entry, I wouldn't mind picking up some of this. Tyranitar, same thing, low gym rate. Price wise, kind of went up quite a bit, as expected. It just rotated out. So what this is kind of just, finding entry point. So that's kind of what I see here. Magikarp is great as well. It's just the price point is really high. I think it's around 5,000. Could I see it going up to 10, 20,000 in the future, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? I'm sure it would. But as far as ROI, I probably wouldn't really want to invest in that right now. So Obsidian Flames, let's kind of take a look here. With this one, I think I picked two, which is the Cleffa and the Ninetales. That kind of stood out to me. And then you can kind of see, right? Gem rate is pretty low. As far as price point, it's a decent entry right now, I would say. So, and same thing, you can see the chart went up a lot more right when they were rotating out. So something to keep in mind. Like you're gonna see the trend on almost all of these right now. Gem rate is decent, a little bit high pop, 4,000. I think this is decent as well. So that's kind of why I kind of chose these two to kind of keep an eye out on. So that's Obsidian Flames. 151, I'll kind of explain what you know, 151 you can't go wrong, right? There's nostalgia on it, but Charizard I think has a very high population. I think I was comparing this to like the one in Phantasmal Flame, and the price point everything kind of matches, but Charizard is great. It's just trying to get in at like 1500 price point I think is decent if you could get in around that price. 1200 will be better, right? But the one that stood out to me was, I think, maybe Bulbasaur. Let's take a look here. So Charmander is definitely good too, but entry wise, it's not the best. It's already 650 roughly. Gem rate is okay. I like it when it's, you know, under 30% when I'm buying. Bulbasaur I think was interesting mainly because I see that, I don't know, maybe it's just not high in demand as compared to Charmander, Squirtle, and all the other ones, right? But you can see that it's still kind of been stagnant almost. You know, it's $300. So I kind of put this as one of the cards to kind of watch, just because it's not like the other cards where you could see like a massive run up, you know, recently. So 8,000 pop is it is a little high, you know, but yeah, this is a card that I'm kind of keeping an eye out on right now. So 151, I think the one that I put down was Bulbasaur. Everything else to me is great cards, you know, high demand, but you know, when I'm looking at entry point right now, I didn't really see much opportunities besides Bulbasaur. Okay, Paradox Rift. This one, I really just picked Groudon for this one. Main reason is because gem rate is pretty low, right? It's not bad, but at the same time, I just really like this artwork myself. You can see it kind of trend up. And I've been slowly accumulating some of this, maybe more than I should have, just because I just like the artwork a lot more. But yeah, Groudon is one that I'm looking for in Paradox Rift. These three, I'm kind of just staying away for now. Alright, what else did I see? Paldean Fates, let's kind of look through this really quick. Bubble Mew was always good. You know, Mew was my daughter's favorite Pokemon. So I accumulated a bunch of these back then, and it's working out, right? So Bubble Mew was something that I have. So it's not on my list right now because I have a good amount of this. But something that stuck out to me was these shiny rares. So let's kind of take a look at Pikachu and Charmander, right? When I'm looking at mainly demand part, which one's in high demand, is those two kind of pops out to me. So when I'm looking at this, let's take a look at Pikachu first. You can see it's only like 1280, which is considered a pretty low pop to me. You know, I think anything under 5,000 to me is considered a pretty low pop when it comes to Pokemon. But yeah, you can see it ran up massively, and same thing, right? It rotated out in April of this year. You can see it stagnant for a couple of years and big run up right when it rotates out. So all these data points, all these stuff, you just take that and then you apply it to the next block, and then we'll kind of take a look at that in a little bit. But I think Pikachu, it ran up a lot. I wouldn't buy it here, as you know, I think this is a good card. It's just, you know, the entry is not great, so I'll kind of just keep an eye out on this. Charmander, I think, was the one that I was interested in because, you know, the only thing is that the gem rate is kind of high. You know, it looks like what, 40-50%. And when I'm looking at this, you know, price point isn't nothing crazy. You know, around $200 is affordable. So I think I kept Charmander as something to keep an eye out, to accumulate slowly. I feel like this might potentially be a card that could be worth something. Now, when you're looking at this, I know you're probably saying to yourself, like, shiny rares are easy to pull. Yes, I think they are. It's just you have so many shiny rares in this set that to pull a specific one, to pull Charmander or Pikachu, is kind of hard. You know, you might need like 400 packs or something to pull just Charmander, right? And when I'm looking at this too, you know, like there's not a lot in PSA 10, mainly because I think a lot of people, they just have these in binder copies because they probably thought that it's not that rare, things like that. It's not a full art, right? And that could be true. So, you know, but I'm just looking at the entry. I feel like it's a pretty good time to buy some Charmanders right now for Paldean Fates. All right, so that's all the block that just rotated out, which was G block. You can kind of see how those look. So when I'm gonna kind of apply the same logic, look for opportunities in the block that's rotating out, right? So right now I'm gonna open temporal. When I'm looking at this, you know, Ghastly is the one that pops out to me. Gem rate is low, which is good. Price point is a little high, you know, 550 range. If I could get this around like 450, 400, you know, I'll probably start accumulating some of this as well. Other than that, this one maybe, Morty's Conviction. But yeah, Temporal Forces is that. Twilight, let's take a look at Twilight. I think for this, I like the Chansey. I like the EV. Greninja, let's kind of take a look at this. Chansey, the only thing that I'm concerned is, you know, 6,200. Gym rate is a little high. Price isn't that bad though, but with most of these, it's just gonna be, I don't know. This one I kind of like, you know, the artwork is decent too. You have Ditto, Chansey, Snorlax, Psyduck. Like, you have a lot of nostalgic characters all in one. So because of that, I feel like the demand might be there to drive these up. So this is something that I'm slowly accumulating as well. Eevee is kind of a tricky one. Gym rate is decent. Pop is a little high, 12,000. You know, but it's Eevee, right? So entry is decent. I don't know. I think I have this in my watch list to kind of keep an eye out. Greninja, pop is high. Gym rate is decent, 50% roughly. Price point isn't too bad. You know, I just don't like the artwork in this. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but it doesn't even look like Greninja to me. So I think that's one reason why I'm just subconsciously not trying to buy none of this. But you could if you want. I think entry wise and value wise, it's not bad. You know, if you could get around 750, 650 mark, you know, I could definitely see this going up to like $1,000 card after it runs out of print. After it goes out of print, I mean. So yeah, Twilight, that's Twilight. And then Shroud of Fable. I think for this one is mainly Horsey and Persian that, you know, you can see I really just like first generation Pokemons for some reason, you know, like I know the demand is there for this. Horsey, decent gym rate. Decent, you know, it's low supply, 1100, you know, but it's Horsey, you know, I don't know if there's a lot of demand that will go towards Horsey, but entry's not bad. So this is something that I'm keeping an eye out on as well. Persian, gym rate is low. I think 30% maybe. Price point I think is fair. So I'm keeping an eye out on Persian as well when it comes to Shroud of Fable. I like specialty sets, you know. Specialty set, I think with Shroud of Fable, I think people are underestimating the limited supply that's in the market for this set. I think they're coming out with some bundles or something. But yeah, let's wait and see how this goes. Shroud of Fable, Stellar Crown. Let's take a look here. Really just Bulbasaur and Squirtle, I think, for this set. Now, when I'm looking at this, pop is really high. You really just gotta compare this one to like 151, right, to kind of see which route you want to go. I think these are okay. I don't think I'm really a fan of it based on the entry and everything and the high pop. Decent gym rate, maybe 40%. Bulbasaur, I mean, it's not bad, you know. Like, I think value-wise is decent. So I'll probably just keep these out. Keep an eye on this. If it gets to like a good entry, I might, you know, start buying some of this as well. So Stellar Crown is mainly those two that I see. And Surging Sparks. Surging Sparks, I think, was these three. Pikachu, Latias, and Latios. So Pikachu, no movement, right? Like about 2 years ago, this been stagnant. I think this is a pretty good value right here. Like with most of these, I think you're going to see a big run up after it gets out of print, right? I think you know, Surging Sparks, this Pikachu, it's gonna be a good card in the future. This is a card that I'm kind of keeping an eye out. You know, when I get a good entry, 80-90% of market, I'm probably gonna start buying some of this. Latias, decent gem rate, 7,000 pop. Decent. This is kind of high, 500 something. Okay. I think this is something that I'm keeping an eye out as well. I am buying some of this, you know, Latias and Latios. I think you can't really go wrong with these legendary birds. But I'm looking at this. I'm like 7,100. Gem rate is a little higher than Latios, but it's $500. You know, I'll want to get this around like 400, 450 range. Latios, maybe just not as high demand for the price point. You can see it around like 250 mark, I will say, right? You know, 7,000 pop. Gem rate is maybe 30% or so. So I'm definitely looking into buying some of this as well. I just like the legendary birds, you know, Latios, Latias, Pikachu. So yeah, those are the three that I see in Surging Sparks. Prismatic. Now, I love the seal when it comes to Prismatic. I don't love the cards or the slabs as far as value wise, right? Like the artwork and stuff is cool, but as far as me buying slabs of Prismatic, I'm not really a fan of it, you know, just because the entry, I feel like, yeah, you know, $6,000 for this Umbreon. When you get past like 4 or 5 thousand, you know, it's, you know, you're catering to like a different audience or customer base, right? So like I'm sure this is gonna reach 10,000 one day, maybe 15, right, in 5 years or so. But yeah, just the entry and everything right now is kind of too expensive. Sylveon, I will say this is part of the second card. Gem rate is decently, it's not bad. Low gem rate, 30%. Been stagnant, but kind of same thing, right? $1,600 card for this. I'm sure this will be 5,000 one day, but as far as like return on investment, you know, these will be like a maybe. You know, I'll just kind of keep this on my watch list or something. So that's Prismatic, you know, and that's the last one that's rotating out for H block. I block for here, I'm not really interested too much unless it's like some of those S tier set. You know, I think I'm looking at Destined Rival and Phantasmal. So the Mewtwo, I'm kind of looking at it just so that you can kind of see, you know, this has another 2-year print, right? And then based on some of the charts that I showed you, I feel like this is going to be stagnant for another year and a half. You know, it's going to be bouncing around 1,000 to 1,500 mark, I think. High gym rate, high population right now. So I'll keeping an eye out on here, but I wouldn't really be buying right now. Mega Charizard X, you know, one of the best Charizard in my opinion. So I think for this one, same thing, right? Like I think the pop was pretty high on this, and the gym rate was high. So high as in like 40%. 40% is considered high for Pokemon in my opinion. But yeah, I think when you're looking at this, same thing, right? This, I think the price is gonna stagnate between, let's just say, 1,500 to 2,500, right? So 2,000 on average probably for the next 2 years. So I think for this, I'm keeping an eye out on it, but not really buying right now, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's kind of like the slab side, right? And when I look at the chart here on my Excel sheet, this is how it kind of looks like, you know, kind of summarizing it. So I kind of organize it by the set, you know, the first 3 columns, you could see A, B, C. This just kind of describe the card itself. You can see a lot of it is just what I think is in high demand card. You know, there's nothing, everything here is, I think most people will know what Pokemon it is for the most part. And then the other 2 things that I like to talk about is you really want to consider the population for PSA 10. So the pop report for PSA 10 and then the gym rate, you know. So when you're investing in slabs in general, these 2, I guess what, KPIs, or I don't know if it's KPIs, but these 2 data points is very important when I'm considering what I should buy and things like that. So I kind of summarize it, you know, I'm watching those. I'm buying these from Obsidian Flames, 80-90% of current market if I can. 151, you can see I'm watching most of those. I'm probably buying some Bulbasaur because I was telling you that that was an interesting one because of the price point. You know, when you're looking at most of these, you could probably argue that Bulbasaur should be worth $400-500. And yeah, that's that. Paradox Rift, I think Groudon, 34% gem rate, 5,000. The pop is a little high, you know, but I feel like this has a lot more room to run. Pouting Fates, I kind of said, you know, Pikachu, the shiny rare, I'm watching this, keeping an eye out. You know, Charmander, I do want to buy, 47% gem rate though, so it's a little high, but you can see that the pop is still under 2,000, you know, which I think is pretty low still. Temporal Forces, you can see Ghastly, I'm watching. Yeah, you can kind of just take a look at this. I'm gonna share you guys a link. Let me just make sure. Yeah, so you guys could view it. You guys could kind of keep track with me. This is kind of like, I guess, my diary of what I'm doing. You know, when we look back on this couple months, couple years back, we could kind of see the progress and, you know, hopefully everything is going to perform well. But yeah, I'll kind of keep this here. Like, this is honestly, like, I take a picture of this when I'm about to go to car shows or something, you know. Like, I think I'll filter it, right? Like, I'll kind of clear everything. I'll kind of see what I'm buying, and I'll kind of, you know, take a picture of this. And when I go to shows or anything, this is kind of what I'm looking for. You know, this is my buy list. You know, my buy list on what I'm currently looking to buy. But yeah, this type of video, I think I'm gonna make it if there's any big changes that I'm doing. So, you know, if someone were to ask me what am I doing for Pokemon right now, it'll be basically what I'm explaining in this video. You know, I'll have a CO side, which is mainly prismatic that I'm investing heavily. If I see that there's opportunities in September, October, I'll make another video to kind of just update this, right? To kind of explain, here's what I'm doing in October because I see some opportunities. So CO side and slab side, you know, I'll kind of just keep adding rows. Just, you know, really going back to what I said in the beginning, this is something that I'm doing. It works for me. It works for my risk tolerance and what I know and things like that, right? The CO side is definitely more safe. You know, CO is definitely what you call deflationary, right? You could kind of pick the wrong one sometimes and still be a little safe because over time more stuff gets ripped. It's going to be deflationary. That means that you know, supply is going to keep running lesser and lesser, and then with that the price is going to be a slow grind up for the most part. For slabs is more risky. Just keep in mind that with slabs they're usually more inflationary. With this, you have to be mindful that it's really come down to the demand part of it. You know, if the supply keeps going up but the demand stays stagnant, then that's going to cause your price to go down. So demand has to either increase with it as supply increase, or if it doesn't, then the price is going to go down. So just know that with slabs is more riskier. That's why I'm sticking to, you know, demand stuff that I feel like is going to be more in demand. I look at the gem rate. And something that I want to point out too is I did separate, you know, without dragging the video too long, I do have some promo slabs that I didn't get a chance to talk about, but it's mainly Pokemon Center ETB one, right? And the main reason why I stuck to Pokemon Center is because usually with those, they're more limited in supply. And I stuck to kind of, you know, more in demand Pokemon, you know. And it's really interesting for the Pokemon Center ETBs. The reason for that is look at Mega Evolution and Phantasmal Flame Pokemon Center ETBs. Look at this. There's currently under 5% gem rate. There's 86 of this from Mega Evolution, Riolu, and 35 of this for this one, like Phantasmal Flame. Like, if you own 3 of this PSA 10, you own like 10% of the supply. So this was interesting to me. I'm currently buying some of this if I could find it. The price point is a little high, but you can kind of look at this to see how the gem rate with the supply affects the price, right? That's kind of like why I kept track of some of this data, and then I'm gonna keep adding on to it, kind of looking for opportunities. But yeah, this I think was interesting to kind of see. And some of these Pokemon Center ETBs, you know, there's a lot of promos when it comes to Pokemon. I don't know all of it. I don't have a chance to kind of go through it. And then with collection boxes, when it comes to promos, you really gotta try to think about how much is in supply. You know, there's millions of prismatic ETBs, right? So prismatic regular ETBs promo card, you can still make money buying it and grading it and flipping it, but I wouldn't really necessarily try to buy that and hold it long term. But as far as the Pokemon Center one, that one is still, it might be okay. You know, there's 4,000 right now with 26% gem rate. Um, and this one I'm keeping an eye out. But yeah, all in all, I guess, you know, hopefully this is something that was useful for you guys. Hopefully you guys gain some knowledge from this. I'm gonna be doing this video for another TCG Riftbound that I love collecting as well, you know, and then with this, I'm gonna share a link. I'll leave it somewhere in the description or on one of the comments. You can only view it, so you can kind of keep in mind on what I'm doing, kind of look at it, you know, ask any questions you want, but CO side is straightforward. And yeah, I mean, let me know what you guys think, you know. Leave me some comments, let me know if you guys want to see something else. I'm still really trying to find my direction in this content space, right? I'm pretty busy with running both sides of my business right now, which is the sealed wholesaling side and then also the grading side, right? It's really just bouncing back and forth. But I do want to try to be continuous. I do want to be consistent in making content, but if the content isn't something that you guys want or you guys are looking for, then it'll defeat the purpose, you know, because I'm not making it for me. I'm making it for you guys. So leave me some feedback. Let me know what you guys think. And then, yeah, I'll see you in the next one.